Today we're doing a poetry event for the celebration of April is Poetry Month. Today at Hunterdon Central we have several poets coming from the Dodge Poetry Foundation to read poetry with the kids in the little theater throughout the day. We have a creative writing inspiration event happening here in the IMC. We have about 7 classes here with their teachers. Each one is doing a separate creative writing inspiration creating activity. Poetry is something that a lot of kids and adults actually are quite afraid of. It can be intimidating, I think, until you really get in and play with it and learn to have fun with language. And once you begin to do that kind of experimenting, playing with language, and understanding that poetry is really just a way of exploring the questions you have or expressing your own feelings, perceptions, and ideas about the world, it becomes a lot more accessible. So activities like this provide each student with a little bit of an inroad, and sort of in that spirit, we gave each student a journal for the day to use for each of their activities, and hopefully to inspire them as they leave from here to keep writing, keep journaling, keep exploring, and keep discovering.
I'm Dr. Gretna Wilkinson. I spend half of my time in Eatontown, New Jersey, and the other half in New Rochelle, New York. I'm here today to celebrate poetry with the students of the school, and I'm just looking forward to a fabulous, energetic time with them, because I find that the young people, they are walking poems, and I love being with them. Underground jazz. Woo, I like this. I wrote this one night at a jazz concert on pieces of paper, and then went home and put it together. Oh, is this changing? Does my voice really sound this rich? I should talk more. So I wrote this jazz piece. They came from another planet, it seems. Came to force us to surrender all that was proper. And they played down into the night. Take it down, he said to her one time, take it down. A tap, tap, tap of his right foot, and he began to count off. A 1, a 2, a 1, 2, 3, and she began to blow. She blew that horn like it owed her rent. His tenor sax entered about 3 bars later, and they played on into the night. Sweat drizzled, the juke joint rocked. Musk collected above our heads, just below the chandelier, and they played on into the night. It was a vibe so pure in a place so free. No God would risk sending his angels for fear they would never return. And so we were alone. Our only protection, Marvin Gaye's advice, let's get it on. Oh, I chimed in despite myself. The stranger beside me reached out both arms and he held me tight. We hummed and we swayed while the band played on into the night. I understood right then how Eve must have felt when Adam bowed his head, closed his eyes, and prayed, most beautiful Eve, let's get it on. I have a sister, she's in her 60s, and she is afraid of death. She's deathly afraid of death. So I wrote this for her, and I waited one day until she's over at my house, and she was dozing. So I pretended I was like dusting the, whatever that piece of furniture was, and I'm keeping an eye on her. And then as soon as she was like close to it, I said, Wendy, when you die, do you want me to put your arms like this or straight down? And she said, well, you just want me to die, blah, blah. And she went on. So I wrote this piece for her. It's just fun. It's just a fun, maybe it's not even a poem. It doesn't matter. I call it Tombstone Suggestions. I have 9. I have plenty, but only 9 here. 1, this sucks. 2, here today, here tomorrow. 3, here today, here today. 4, I got it, I spent it. 5, coulda, shoulda, woulda. 6, I didn't hear anybody sing. 7, this space was left blank on purpose. What am I up to now, 7 or 8? 7, write your own lines. Next one, did little then, doing less now. Had nothing left for the piper. Caution. Wet floor. Oops, I kicked the bucket. Last one. I told you I was sick. I read it to her and she got up. She said, go home. Leave my house. Go home. Okay, so let me do Ode to an Outhouse. You know what's an outhouse, right? Yeah. I grew up with one. And one day at the library, I read this, Ode to an Outhouse. And there was a lovely old gentleman up at the front, and he's like, he had a question for me. He said, how could you get so excited about an outhouse, a latrine? And I said to him, what turns you on? And he didn't have an answer for me. And I realized I shouldn't answer a question with another question. So I said, do you have a bathroom inside your house? He said, yes. I said, me too. I have this ensuite thing going, all the bathrooms. And then downstairs, not far from the kitchen, there's another guest bathroom. And when guests come to my house and they want to poop, guess what they do? They poop in that room right near my kitchen where I'm cooking my food. You still think it's bad to have an outhouse? And he's like, no, not if you're going to put it like that. I said, but it gets worse. I take these cans of chemicals and I spray the place and I breathe that stuff in. You still think an outhouse is the worst thing? He said, not if you're going to put it like that. See, so what we think is awful, it's just finding another way to think about something. They say think outside the box. I say push the box way over and see what's good about the very thing you want to beat upon. So this one, Ode to an Outhouse. My friend Gloria's latrine is like dried out goat turd. One tiny breeze and poof, it's gone. Rolled over into village gossip. I can't wait to tell her that the men from the sawmill brought over lumber this morning for my brand new latrine. Yes, I'll tell her that. And then I'll wait for her eyes to pop green. Then I'll say, Gloria, girl, you won't believe this, but my brand new latrine will have a hole so deep, the thing won't fill up for like 100 years or more. Let me tell you, it will have an aluminum roof slanted toward the back so the rainwater will roll off of it, and some opening in the space of the front to let the breeze in. And girl, I think teacher said that's called ventilation space. Rain out, breeze in. And get this, just a piece of wood cut round with a straight piece on the top for a proper handle. You know the best part? I won't have to wash my hands while the latrine is still brand new. I can go in there and go home and eat. And then I'll wait and I'll watch her. And her eyes will pop more green. And then I'll say, I plan to read and write and I'm going to sneak biscuits and cookies in there, and maybe a glass of milk. Sometimes hide out in there while it's brand new. Yes, that's how I'll do it. And then when Gloria walks off with her head all bowed, wishing she could have a brand new latrine too, I will grab my skirt by the hem and do a little skip and a hop, swishing back and forth, and I will sing at the tippy top of my voice, skip, skip, skip to my loo, skip to my loo, my darling. Flies in the sugar bowl, shoo, fly, shoo. Any questions? Let's have some questions. Or comments. Since I was a little girl. The other day, someone asked a question about poetry, and I think my parents, but mostly more than them put together, my grandmother. I mean, there was never a day that you didn't hear several poems from her. And she would call it, she had a very soft voice. So she would call us to her, the three of us, and she would say, pay attention. When she starts talking, you have to really listen. So she'd remind us to pay attention to what she's saying. And she'll recite these verses of poetry. Then in kindergarten, you have to memorize and recite a poem every week. So every Friday, all of the classes, from kindergarten up all the way up, had to memorize and recite a poem. So I was writing poetry even when I didn't know how to write. I would make up, little words and add letters that I thought the words looked like. So I was doing that. Oh, you want to hear a little story about what I did in kindergarten? Well, my teacher gave me my poem, which was this big, and my sister, who was 2 standards, meaning 2 classes above mine, she was sick and wasn't at school that day, so her teacher brought her poem for me to bring home for her. Her poem was this big. And I said to my teacher, why is my poem so small? She said, the big poems are for the big girls. She should not have said that. You know why? They had convinced me just about every morning at the start of the school year that I was a big girl. Why? My mother would drop me off at school and I would cry. And she'd say, but you're a big girl. You want to learn with the big girls? I'd say, yeah. So I'm a big girl and you giving me a small poem. It didn't work, not for my child's logic. So I switched the poems, gave my sister the little one, and I learned her big one. And I know both. Mine was The Wind by R.L. Stevenson. Who has seen the wind? Neither I nor you. But when the trees bow trembling, the wind is passing through. Who has seen the wind? Neither you nor I. But when the leaves bow down their heads, the wind is passing by. Huh? So I'm looking at my sister's poem, and my mother tells me every word, what they mean, and how to perform the piece. So I did it. It's called Whose Delinquency? And I had a lisp, so it was like, whose delinquency on my tongue. So I performed it for my teacher. And she was like, that's not the poem I gave you. I said, but you said the one for big girls, and I'm a big girl. So it's called Whose Delinquency? We read in the papers, we hear on the air of killing and stealing and crime everywhere. We sigh and we say as we notice the trend, this young generation, where will it all end? But can we be sure that it's their fault alone? That maybe a part of it isn't also our own? Kids don't make the movies. They don't write the books that paint a flashy picture of gangsters and crooks. They don't make the liquor. They don't own the bars. They don't make the laws or those fast cars. Kids don't make the drugs that addle their own brain. That's all done by older folk, greedy for gain. In far too many places, we find this to be true, that the label delinquent fits older folk too. So I did it like that, and you grab your hem and you curtsied. And when I straightened up, my teacher was crying. And I said to her, "Don't cry. You are not a delinquent." Nice question. I took too long, but any more questions? Let's get another one. How much time do I have? Okay, another question. Okay, I'll do, yes. It's like your children. You just love them all, and they're all so different. Um, well, at least the parents I know. I have 3 sons, and I've fooled each one into thinking he's my favorite. But I can't do that with the poems. And then sometimes I heard them one morning arguing, "No, I'm her favorite. She told me so." That's not true. She told me that. And so when I loved it. I was like, they're fighting over my love. That's good, to have men fighting over my love. I have one. It's like it's a story. It's not in real Creole, but it's sort of in the vernacular. And it's called Tree Nearly Killed Man. So a tree almost killed a man. So you're going to hear a word like pagali. Pagali means special need. I don't think I have any other. Anyway, in English Creole, vowels are elongated, even consonants are spread out. So you're going to hear that kind of thing. Tree nearly killed man. Once upon a fine Saturday, a man decided to improve the looks of the yard. Things been running a little raggedy for some time now, ever since he started the new job at the loading dock. So he wake up before bird wife wake up, like it was a weekday morning. He eat he bake and he salt fish. He drink a cup of hot Congo pump tea, and set out with a big enamel cup of water in case thirst breaks he up. The plan was for make his yard look so good, it bound forget envy. He haul out the tools from under the shed, under the house, and he proceed for make things around, move things around. He moved this baby long mango tree from over here, and he planted over there. He moved the morning glory bush from near the gutter, and he bring it not too far from the walkway. On and on like that, this man walk whole morning long. The Mrs. Kali, me soon come, me tell she. The little Pagali son, Bayo Kali, me soon come, sonny, he tell the boy, but he just ain't budging. He keeps sipping the lukewarm water. Meantime, son start for stand up like it suddenly grow from boy to man. It didn't even slow down for puberty, I tell you. Suddenly, the heat Lego one slap on the man back. He thought the devil himself was playing soccer back there. Only then he started for really hustle. He moved the brand new planting sucker from behind the kitchen. Things was way too crowded back there anyhow. He stick it in the new hole by the pepper tree. But now, you can't imagine how good he feeling, like he was a small god or something. Uno pequeño Dios. After all, he make beauty and order by himself. Huh? Anyway, he straightened up, swallowed the last drops of water, wiped his forehead and the back of his hand, then take his first step to the house. Out of nowhere, he hear a strange sound like leaves cussing one another out. Before he could even turn round, a plantain sucker dish out one jumpy lash. It catch him on the exact same spot where the sun did slappy. In the middle of a man-sized groan, he hear a funny voice coming from the plantain sucker. It say, "How you like it if I dig a hole and drop you in it, eh?"
everyone. My name is Michelle Myers, and I am a spoken word poet. I'm very honored to be here today to share some of my poetry. I see myself as a poet/activist, and so I use my poetry as a way to share stories, because I believe that poetry allows us to really make human connections so that we can better empathize with each other and understand each other. And I also believe in the transformative power of poetry. Remember. I've been using this word a lot lately, but I wonder if I've been using it right. I mean, how do we remember ourselves? You know, repair our dismembered selves? I hear the Reverend say our speaking is just the beginning, but I stand in this cemetery that sings notes from the underground, and I wonder if silence ever really ends. Especially in this Detroit summer swelter where I can't breathe enough to feed the human hunger of this place. But then I dream a breeze waltzes down my body and breathes life into this dirt, singing his notes from the underground, notes that windsurf on the early summer air until it is whispered in heart chords that chime tears of remembrance. And I cry, even though I didn't know him. And I wish I had a private moment to think about the difference between quiet and silence, listening and hearing, feeling and being, seeing and knowing. But all I have is this place that's become my pilgrimage and these people who have become my people. The family of Vincent Chin, my people. The family of Joseph Aledo, my people. The students from the University of Michigan, my people. These poets, musicians, artists, singers, my people, these Christians, these Muslims, these Jews, my people. And I wonder, when did we cease to be a people? At what point does conscience collapse so that we fail to remember ourselves before we swing a baseball bat? Before we squeeze the trigger 41 times? Before we drag black men to their deaths down Texas roads? Before we bomb Afghanistan? Before we strap bombs to our bodies to become suicide bombers? Before we rape women in war? Before we abandon war babies? Before we invade Iraq? Before we shoot a 19-year-old Hmong youth 8 times in the back? Before we beat and burn and hang and leave for dead gay men on Wyoming fences? Before we stab to death a Muslim woman just because she's wearing a hijab? Before we kill unarmed African-American men who are calling out for their mothers? Before we dismember ourselves? Because this list could go on and on and on to sever us with language that represents action without conscience. And in this moment, every part of me wants so badly to sing in retaliation and to dismember the moment I remember of being on bended knee, returning notes I received from the underground. A clicking noise warns that a beheading is coming. His snapshots quickly hunt me down and freeze me with questions just as intrusive as his camera. Why are you here? What is your connection? And I am too stunned by the demand for an answer to put into words the calling in my heart. So I remember I say simply, I am an Asian American woman. It was important for me to be here. And I remember I spilt my tears onto red and yellow carnations that danced with baby's breath under the June Detroit sun. Thank you. Thank you all so much for listening. The next poem that I'm going to share with you is, so let me just say, I'm an angry person, okay? I write a lot of angry poetry. I'm sure that you didn't think that when I stepped up to the mic that I was an angry person, but I am. I'm a very angry person. So a lot of my poems tend to be, by the time I get to the end of this set, I'll try to do some lighter poetry for you. So I tend to talk about heavy topics, okay? So sometimes my poetry can be angry, sometimes it can be sad. But the one thing that no matter what the topic of the poem is that I've written and that I'm performing, all poems lead back to my mom, okay? I've been writing ever since I can remember. So my mom was Korean, and I was born in Seoul, South Korea. And, when I came here, so my father was in the U.S. Air Force, and he was stationed in Korea, and that's how he met my mom, right? And they got married, and then I was born in Seoul. And then my father was restationed back here in the United States. And then I came with my parents, and so I grew up here since I was a baby. And from the earliest moments that I can remember, my mom read me books. Now, when we came to the United States, she stopped speaking Korean to me. And later I asked her, why she did that. And she said because she didn't want me to be confused, and she thought that maybe it would hurt me in school, And I wish that she had. And the other thing that I wish that she had done was, I wished, growing up, I wished that I had a Korean name, Partly because being biracial, I had a lot of identity issues. Sometimes people would ask me, because I am racially ambiguous, whatever that means, right? And people would ask me, oh, what are you? And then I would say, oh, I'm Korean, or I'm Korean American. And then they'd say, no, you're not. And I'd be like, what? You're telling me, you asked me and I told you what I am, now you're telling me no, I'm not? You know what I mean? And as a young person, that can mess you up because you don't know, you're not really armed with how to defend yourself sometimes. Do you know what I mean? And so this poem that I'm going to share with you is called, the title is My Mother Calls Me. And it's mainly about why my mom gave me the name Michelle, which is a familiar name, right? A familiar American name. I don't know that its origin is American, but, it's a familiar American name. The other thing that I want you to understand about this poem is that it's bookended by me talking about my mother's illness and preparing for her passing. So my mother passed away 5 years ago. The 5-year anniversary of her passing was actually last month. It was March 8th, okay? And so, so there's that. She had multiple myeloma, which is cancer of the bone marrow, so she was producing cancerous blood cells, which were then attacking her internal organs, including her kidneys, and so she was in advanced stages of kidney failure, so she was on dialysis. She also had thyroid cancer. So my mom was ill for a very long time, okay? As I'm sharing this poem, I hope that you'll think about your names, right? Maybe some of you know the significance behind your names as far as why your parents gave you the name that you have. Maybe you were named after a family member, right? Maybe your name has some special meaning. And if you don't know, maybe you could ask, right? My mother calls me. I pick up my cell phone when I see it's my mom, Misha. I can tell by the way she says my name, something is wrong. My name, unpronounceable for her, the vowels moon bouncing on her tongue until they lose balance and fall over, and the consonant sound that would make her English stand upright, the L's forever out of reach. Misha, my mother is dying. Cancer of the blood, failing kidneys, broken spirit, homeless ghost, all are her ailments. She calls me on my phone because she doesn't have the strength to call to my dad, who spends most of his time downstairs. Much of her life must have felt as though she were always out of earshot. Misha, I have often wondered what my mom thinks when she says my name. I also wonder if this is where her frustration with me begins, at her inability to say my name, mother to daughter bad connection, because she gave me a foreign name that she cannot pronounce. My name, a name chosen but not chosen, chosen because it was given but still a derivative, Michael. The name of the ambulance driver on the military base in Seoul who rushed my mother to the hospital through a raging blizzard just in time for my mother to give birth to me. When my mother's labor pains started, my father told my mother to wait until the football game, probably the Super Bowl, was over. This ambulance driver held my mother's hand as my mother screamed in pain, me pushing out into the world, refusing to wait any longer. When she got to the hospital, as she was being wheeled off of the ambulance, she asked him his name. Michael, I'm going to name my baby after you. But I was born a girl. Misha, my brother, born 1 year, 5 months later, given the name Michael. Michael. My mother says my brother's name in almost perfect English. Misha, Michael. When my brother and I were little, my mom wrote our names in Korean on the Christmas present so that when we woke up extra early on Christmas morning and snooped through the gifts under the tree, we wouldn't know which gifts were ours. I remember how her slender back would bend over the gifts under the lighted tree to read what only she could, and we were breathless with anticipation until the moment my mom placed our gifts directly in our hands. My name, written phonetically in Korean. I wonder if this is how my mom sees my name in her head. Or maybe she only sees my face. Or maybe she sees nothing at all. Misha, my name, written the way my mom said it, how I heard it all my life. I hated the sound. Now, I save my mom's voice messages so that I can hear her say my name long after she is gone. Thank you. Oh, did I grab yours? So I'll do a light poem for you guys. I'll give you a break, okay? This poem is called Ancestor Worship. I wrote it to honor my Korean ancestors, and when I honor my ancestors, I also honor yours. The other thing that I would ask you to think about as I'm sharing this poem is that it's a miracle. It's a miracle that you're here. You, as your unique self in this place, right, in this moment, you're a miracle. Have you ever wondered about your ancestors, right? You had to have ancestors living here on this earth 100 years ago for you to be here. You had ancestors walking this earth 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago, for you to be here today. You had ancestors walking this earth 10,000 years ago at the end of the last ice age for you to be here today. Have you ever thought about that? You walk with them every day. They're in your DNA. They're in your DNA. Some of you may have heard, oh, you have your mother's smile, or you have your grandfather's laugh, right? Some of you have heard that, right? Have you ever wondered if that smile that you share with your mother goes back to an ancestor who lived 300 years ago? It's possible. Have you ever wondered if that laugh that people said sounds like your grandfather, if that goes back to an ancestor 1,000 years ago? It's possible. It's a miracle that you're here. I hope you can see yourself as being a miracle, okay? Ancestor worship. I am lifetimes infinite, billion strong. I learned this song from the ancestral throng who within me danced a double helix. Feel this, they whip genetic hurricanes in my veins, gain perpetuity like a pair of cranes. Korean symbol of longevity, their bodies and spirits don't weigh heavy on me. I am who I am because of men like Yun Chun Hee, grandfather, 1 in a billion ancestor, who lived to prepare my destiny or my harmony. Shinde Sun, I don't need a reason. It's always a celebrate your ancestor season. Season me Korean, nothing else I'd rather be in. This lifetime, it's my time to shine and pave the way for generations next to join me in pride expressed for this mind, this body, this spirit fed X from blood to blood, a billion-gallon flow and fam to fam that span eternal through my Korean maternal line. I need to find my space. Define my face in this ancestral embrace that is skin tight, but my skin fits me just right. And like a person who's lost their sight, I search the contours of my face for a trace of this or that ancestor who's melded into my skin forever. They're all there, my ancestral throng, for I am, we are, lifetimes infinite and billion strong. Thank you.
Hey everyone, my name's Rashad Wright, never been wrong. I'm a full-time artist, teacher, performer. I do anything you can do with poetry, I kind of do that. I'm an author, so I'm published. I do poetry and memoir, poetry and music, poetry and theater, poetry and dance. If there's something, some way you can find to do poetry, I'm trying to do it or already have done it. I started poetry when I was 17 years old. Senior year of high school, I was required to choose a club activity, and I chose soul poetry. And I'll never forget, I got my first standing ovation during that arts festival, and none of my classmates wanted to perform. They were very nervous about hitting stage, and I was the one person that decided to rise above that, and I've been doing it ever since, and glad that one day I had that one opportunity in high school to become everything I am now. First things first, my name's Rashad, and that means someone who is always on the right path. And that's funny, because I've taken more wrong turns than newlyweds in horror movies. I'm the oldest of three, so at one point, there were two little girls that looked just like me, and they had to sit through all my TV shows, so they knew all original 152 Pokemon before they knew the alphabet had the last letter. I can run 2 miles in like 12 minutes. Can swim a whole lap in a single chewed up breath. And if you give me a bicycle, I'll make a car think it was a skateboard. I don't believe in capital letters. I believe in equal opportunity. I'm pretty sure Tupac is alive and hiding in Jersey City. And I'll never shower before getting into a pool. I'm pretty sure it defeats the purpose. I'm my mother's son, so whenever I rise, it's always her shine in my eyes, and she raised this voice Christian. So all these poems have at least one amen in it. Can I get an amen? Because back in the days, I believed in God. And then I started believing in myself. Nowadays, I dream big enough to try believing in both at the same time. I'm kind of allergic to nuts. I wear dog tags. I act like it's a rosary. I know my right side. I don't know my left. I've done more sports than states I've been to. I fight hard and love hard enough to break my own heart in half. I'm National Guard, so I'm part-time soldier. Full-time pissed off, I fired more bullets than hands I shook. I had so many guns in my mouth, I could spit out a full clip. So when I love someone, trust I hold them with a full grip. And I am bad at lying, sometimes even worse at dealing with the truth. And the truth is, I feel like a car accident that keeps waking up in the morning, and the morning is never done. No matter how many yesterdays I've had, I'm good. It's so many things, can do it all with a whole family tree tied behind my back, and still feel like a really small fish spread out on a really big table. I can have skin made of gold and still confuse it for rust. I'm a dragon in the Nile of my own flame. My voice is a fairy tale I'm still trying to believe in. I hate talking about myself, but I'm really good at the things I hate, and sometimes I'm so hard on myself that tomorrow always feels like a miracle sent to the wrong address. I mean, we all heard the saying, practice makes perfect. And I've had to practice being this broken for so long. You couldn't fix me if you tried, and I try, 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 and I try. But all that aside, my name's Rashad, and you have no idea how nice it is to meet you. Wow. That makes me so tired. Goodness. Day by day? Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. The brand of poetry that I practice specifically is called performance poetry. That combines the art form of poetry and the art form of performance. When I got into writing, I was primarily much more comfortable being on stage. I was one of those theater kids, one of the drama kids, freshman, yeah, that's right, yeah, we out here, gang, gang. Freshman, sophomore, junior year, I was in theater. I didn't get into poetry until my senior year. And being able to fuse these two very different art forms into a single medium, I think is beautiful, amazing, and dope, and that's the thing that I do and like to teach people. What I do is called slam, and that's when we compete against one another. There are 5 judges, there's a time limit, and a bunch of different rules, and slam is a very specific art form that tries to blend performance and poetry together the same way I do. I'm going to do another poem for you all, and yeah, pay attention to the nuances of it, because there are reasons why it's a performance poem instead of a poem that's well performed. Those are 2 very different concepts, 2 very different things. A performance piece is something that needs to be seen, needs to be experienced, while any poem can be performed well with a skillful performer and actor. Does that make sense? Right. Day by day? I said day by day. Come on now, got me speaking out my throat. This poem's called In Step. Left, right, your left, so smooth. Left, woo, right, your left. Left, your left, hey, left, right, your left, you got it. Left, your left, hey, left, right, your left, you got it. Left, right, your left. When us soldiers march, we lead with the left foot. So when every boot in the platoon hits the ground, the sound is so in sync that even our hearts begin to beat to the same rhythm, and rhythm, even in your dying breath, is the only thing you have. Left, right, your left, so smooth. Left, woo, right, your left. And then the right foot follows. And it's like this desperate pursuit, struggling to keep up. Just like all the things us soldiers tend to leave behind, nevertheless, you'd be surprised to see just how much gets left right behind in the rhythm. You'd be surprised to see how we still dance, how we still march, when even under gunfire, because see, dancing and marching and all of this becomes so easy when the beat has always been there, and you think that beat is always going to be there until one day it's just not, and that'll be the day all the beating finally stops. It'll be the day someone does a left, right, left, all in your breath and up and down your chest. You won't know the difference between your right and your left, and you won't know the difference between your right and your wrong, and you won't know the difference between right and whatever it is you have left right when you need it. Right when you realize these bullets have been calling you by your first name, right when you realize you've been marching in place this whole time, right when you realize you don't have a single thing left. Hold left. Left. Right. Left. Woo. I think we can see or talk about why and what makes this or that a performance piece. As good of a writer as I may be, there are only so many ways that I can reproduce this whole experience on a sheet of paper. Not saying that the paper doesn't do its job. There are things I can do as a writer that I just can't do as a performer, and vice versa. But no matter what, the experience of having a soldier march in front of you and sing the cadences and songs that we sing in front of you, you can't get that on paper. You won't get that experience the same way. Does that make sense? That's what makes this a performance piece, because the performance is necessary for you to experience it in the way it's intended. Cool? And that's my art form. If you all have a workshop with me, I'll be telling you ways and how to break that down and how to create your own performance piece. But the second half of this is called, so in the military, we sing cadences. Everyone say cadence for me. Cadence. Exactly. Cadence sort of just basically means rhythm. And the military adapted the same call and response tradition that's common in so many cultures, and it's very common in the black church in my neighborhood growing up. So when I ran into this while I was in the military, I was like, oh, there's this piece of home, this familiar thing in this foreign place that I'm stuck in and don't want to be at. So I found home and solace in these cadences, in these songs. So I wrote one, and I would like for you all to sing it with me. Can you do that? Can you be my platoon? Cool. So all that's gonna happen is I'm gonna say a line, and you're gonna say back at me. Cool? We'll test it out. Say ho ho. Say ho yeah. Say ho ho. Say all right. Say ho ho. Say let's go. Good job, y'all. Give yourselves a round of applause. That was just a test. I gotta go down south. I gotta go down south. I gotta go up and down. I gotta go all around. I gotta go make them proud. I gotta go right step. I gotta go lay here. I got to fight to the day I die. Give my all to the day I die. Run real far to the day I die. Go all into the day I die. I gotta go down south. I gotta go up and down. I gotta go all around. I gotta go make them proud. I gotta go down south. I gotta go up and down. I gotta go all around. I gotta go make them proud. Yeah. Day by day? Yeah. Another neat little nifty trick that I like to teach people about performance and the art of performance is the art of mirroring. One thing I do while I'm on stage is I'm very aware that my disposition, what I'm doing, will directly impact the people in the audience, the crowd, if that makes sense. So if I'm having a good time up here, if I am in my best spirits, the audience may also be allowed to participate in the experience I'm having. If I'm enjoying myself, you may feel inclined or much more allowed to do it alongside me. Does that make sense? Exactly. For example, while I was just singing that song, I didn't give you instructions to do this, but I dropped my voice lower, and you all dropped your voice lower as well. You all mirrored what I did while on the stage. You all saw that, right? Exactly. So the first thing I always teach people about performance is if you want to be good at being on the stage, notice that the best performers are people that are very good and attentive listeners in the crowd. Now, being a good crowd member can look very differently to different people. Me, myself, I'm the loudest one at any venue, in any crowd, supporting everyone when they're on stage. So when I'm on stage, hopefully they'll reciprocate that same feeling. But being a good audience member may mean that you are making eye contact with that person while they're on the stage. Your phone is in your pocket. This person is being given the respect and reverence that you would want as a performer. You're just doing that on stage. A performance, a show, is an experience that we all undergo together. This is just as much about me as it is you. Because guess what? If you weren't all in this room, this wouldn't even be a performance. This would just be me in my bathroom, looking in the mirror. This would be practice. This would be rehearsal. This is a show. This is allowed to be magical. This is allowed to be inspirational and strong and empowering because all of you are here listening and opening your minds to that experience. Give yourselves a round of applause for that. So if there's anything I'm going to say in this brief introduction to performance poetry is if you want to be good on stage, be good, be great, strive off stage. Does that make sense? Yeah. Be a mirror. Any questions for me? Does anyone have any thoughts, any ideas, maybe even a request? I don't care. Go for it. Oh, yeah, day by day? Yeah, that's right. What's up? What's up?
Did you have to go to like school for poetry, or is it just kind of like on your own, like inspirational?
What's your name, friend?
Alyssa?
Alyssa just asked Mr. Rashad if he had to go to school for poetry or if it was something I just kind of picked up. I got into poetry when I was in senior year high school. I was a student athlete and wanted to pick something that was not stressful on my body. And soul poetry happened to be the only thing that had air conditioning. So that's why I joined the poetry club and got into it. And I didn't study poetry until maybe 4 or 5 years after that. But I was just going to every open mic, every performance opportunity I could get. But yes, I did go to college and study creative writing, but I didn't decide to do that until 4 years after even starting writing. So by then I was already Grand Slam champ, already very much into slam, already traveling doing poetry before deciding to study in the classroom. So no, I didn't need to study in the classroom, but I loved it so much I ended up doing that. And if you want to get into poetry, no, it doesn't have to be your end-all, be-all focus, but it is for me and became that for me, and I was doing well enough before it became my focus in school. Did I answer your question, Alyssa? Thank you. I'm not sure how I'm doing on time, but I'll take one more question. Yes, friend.
About five-ish minutes.
Okay, cool.
So I don't have a question.
Oh, Roger.
I have a really question.
Thank you, friend. Yes, friend. Whoa.
How long have you been doing this for? Like,
Oh, your name, friend? Danny asked Rashad how long he's been doing it. I don't know why I'm speaking in third person, but I've been doing, I was in high school 10 years ago, so that's when I started writing. I've been performing 3 years prior to that, so that's my freshman year. That's 14 years ago. I've been competing competitively since 2015, so that's 8 years. Yes, 8 years I started competing. 10 years ago I started writing. 14 years ago I started performing. Whew. But granted, all that started around when I was all your ages. If you started writing in freshman year, you got the leg up on me or will have the leg up on me. Whoop. That was my leg up, yeah. Thanks, Danny. With my soldiers? That's actually a very good question. I'm glad you asked that. So like a week before I went out to basic training, well, first off, I joined the military strictly so I could fund my college education. That was the only reason I joined. But that's it. Come on now. With this face? Come on. Yeah. I joined a week before seeing my first slam. And I went away to basic training, and I was writing. I was just on that level. I'm like, oh, my God, I got introduced to this new art form, and I'm in this really stressful place, and they really valued and cared about me and seemed like they wanted to see me when I got out of basic training. So I started writing the whole time I was in uniform, and we only had one free day a week, and that was every Sunday, where we would have the privilege of being allowed to listen to the radio. And at 8 o'clock, that radio was shut off, and all 54 soldiers in my platoon would sit on their bunk beds, and we'd have like a little open mic, a little show, and I would perform for them all the poems that I had written that week. Yes, being in the military was a very challenging time, a very hard place, and a lot of the soldiers that were with me were not like-minded with me. But regardless of all of our differences, they still gave me space and looked forward to listening to me articulate my thoughts and feelings. I don't think they related to me. They just appreciated the skill and the fact that I was passionate about something. And yeah, I'm not sure if I'd be doing poetry if I didn't have that captive audience of 50 people from across the country with different opinions and feelings. So yeah, my first crowds were in the military. One more poem. Someone asked me to do that.
Yeah, we have like 2 minutes with that verse.
2 minutes. Sure. Getting better and better. Wowzers, I'm in love. Sheesh, am I gonna do an improv piece? No, okay, sure, I'll just get into the piece. Black Runner Boy, he used to do the high jump, but they kept raising that boy's bar a little higher than everyone else's. He did the pole vault, but got scared of the heights he could reach. Did the javelin throw, but had trouble seeing that far ahead. Did the long jump, but he couldn't stick the landing, couldn't find his footing, had trouble standing tall. Black Runner Boy, he don't even run relay. No one's going to pass him the baton. No one's going to start his race. He don't get no running start. Black Runner Boy, he ain't even got running spikes. He could barely afford his sneakers. And his sneakers look like they got barbed wire for shoelaces. Look like they got bullet holes for ventilation. Look like he tried to duct tape and hog spit the sole together. Look raggedy, look worn out. Look like Black Runner Boy's dreams. All his hope and aspirations noose tied together into a miserable excuse for footwear. I swear them shorts, they so high, look like they trying to run away from them tarred, scarred, and feathered legs, them ashy, busted, concrete cracked ankles and crusty, colored looking calves. Boy, legs look like a cigarette butt still trying to hold on to a flame. That poor kid looked like he'd been through war. Out there, wobbling on that starting line like it's the last leg of his race. I tell you all what the problem is. The problem is he's scared. He thinks there's a lynch mob out in the crowd. He thinks he Emmett Till. He thinks he got the Eric Garner, Michael Brown asthma. But I'm going to tell you all what that boy knows. That boy knows his race. And I don't know about you, but I know that kid, that child, looks like he's ready to run. And you can tell, too. He got that police siren scoped in muscle tone. And out of breath is starting to look natural on him. He proud, too, wearing that jersey like it's the only reason he ain't shot yet. Like it's the only reason he alive. Like his blood could just get up and run without him like a bullet can't cover 200 meters in 23.8 seconds. You know what, Black Runner Boy? I ain't trying to gun you nothing like that. I just wanted to say I used to be exactly like you. Fingers like knives cutting through the air. Feet like wings flying down that track. You better pick that head up when you running, boy. You better breathe, boy, breathe. Because you earned every breath, and that's a privilege for us Black Runner Boys. So you better get out there. You better run them hurdles. Run until the track gets tired. Run until the sneakers are blood-soaked. Run until the footsteps are bulletproof. Run until you have a baton to pass, Black Runner Boy. You better get out there and run. Tag me out, coach.
Poetry matters so much. It's part of everyday life. Music contains poetry. It's very important that students have great poets who are role models, just like it's important for students to have great authors who are role models, and they learn about the process, they learn about the craft, they learn about what's necessary. We have amazing writers in our school. So many of our students are dedicated, inspired writers, and this provides a chance for those students to see where poetry can take them, but it can also inspire students who really aren't familiar with poetry. They could learn about something new and be inspired themselves.